We're going to start this morning with a gentleman that is going to be traveling all over northeast Missouri coming up on Saturday, and he'll kick things off in Marion County at their Lincoln Day Breakfast, which is at 9 a.m. at the Nutrition Center in Hannibal, and we'll put more details about that online. But Senator Roy Blunt from Missouri joins us this morning on the morning meeting. And, Senator, good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Hey, guys. Good to be with both of you this morning and look forward to being all over northeast Missouri Saturday, and I'm always glad to get a chance to be home.
Yeah, no doubt, and we're looking forward to you being in northeast Missouri, and like I said, you're going to be in Marion County beginning at 9, and then you're going to be hitting a bunch of other Lincoln Day breakfast, dinners, lunches. You're going to have plenty of meals, I can tell, on Saturday, but I know that you'll be obviously making remarks, and I wanted to get an idea what folks can expect come Saturday.
Well, I think I'll be making some predictions about the next few years that are going to be important as we look down the road. One is I think we're done with tax policy. I'd be glad to see a revenue-neutral simplification of the tax code, but I really don't believe this president would sign a bill that was revenue neutral, and I think the federal government has all the money it needs right now. We don't have a money problem. We have a spending problem. And the second thing is this spending cap that we have put into law that we complied with the first time this year. I think that spending cap is going to hold. I'm certainly in favor of maintaining that maximum level of discretionary spending that's now set in law for the next 10 years, and it gives those of us who want to do something about spending a lever we've never had before, that if you don't hit that spending number or stay below that spending number, then you go through every line of the budget that's not set aside and you cut those lines in the budget. The third thing I'm sure I'm going to talk about some is the president's health care plan, which clearly is going to cost more and not produce the kind of good results that I'm sure the president hoped for. But this is just a plan that I think the more people find out about it, the less they're going to like it. And I'll probably spend some time talking about more American energy, because I think that's the most positive economic thing that we have going for us right now, and we need to do all we can to take advantage of natural gas and shale oil and all of the American energy possibilities that we have.
Senator, I agree with you when you say the country has a spending problem right now, but with more people seemingly lethargic and willing to hand over their personal responsibilities to a federal government, how do you start to have a conversation about spending less at the federal level?
Well, I think the fact that the law now requires us not to spend more is significant. We're going to spend $1.2 trillion less on the discretionary side of the budget, the side that we vote on every year, though too many of the recent years have been just voting to spend the amount of money we spent the year before with some changes. We haven't even gone through the normal appropriating process in the country for the last 6 years since Harry Reid became the majority leader. And I think with a new chairman, the new chairman's a Democrat, but a chairman Barbara Mikulski from Maryland, I think is going to insist that these spending bills get to the floor and get debated. And so for the first time in a long time, we're talking about priorities. One of the committees I'm on is the Armed Services Committee. And as we begin to approach this line-by-line cutting that we call the sequester, every one of those leaders of the military said another problem, some said even a bigger problem, is the fact that not only are we cutting line by lines in a budget, but it's a budget that hasn't reflected their priorities for 4 or 5 years, because it's just been, well, let's just spend the money next year the way we spent it last year. And so hopefully we're working our way out of that trap. The Senate passed the first budget in 4 years. It wasn't a budget I could vote for, but at least the Senate for the first time in 4 years did its job.
Senator, you were talking about the sequester and going line by line, and some of these, specifically the military, having to kind of reevaluate what they're doing. Does it, because when the sequester was put out there and we went into crisis mode in the last couple of months, and people were up in arms over this whole thing, some people said, well, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Did the sequester, in your opinion, turn out to be as bad as it was, predicted to be?
Well, I think it's not as bad as the president wanted everybody to believe it was going to be. The discussions about how the world would basically end the day that we reduced any federal spending. This is a federal government that's increased its spending by 19% since Barack Obama became president, and the sequester produces a 2.5% cut in federal spending. So we're still spending a lot more than we were 4 years ago. On the side that's not the Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid side, the discretionary side, what we did was get back to 2008 spending levels, which frankly I don't think the country realizes yet what a great accomplishment that was with this administration, to have a tool that allowed it to get back to the spending levels of 4 years ago is a big deal, and hopefully we can get to see those levels get even at lower numbers as we follow the law over the next 9 years. The law now has for 10 years, one of which we've just accomplished, a maximum amount of money that the federal government can spend on the side of the budget that isn't defined by the mandatory spending programs. And eventually, guys, we're going to have to get to those mandatory spending programs. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid will not survive unless we adjust them to the reality and the demographics of the country we live in now, as opposed to the country we lived in 30 years ago or 60 years ago.
Senator Blunt of Missouri, our guest this morning on the morning meeting. Senator, you mentioned both spending and health care. That brings up the Affordable Care Act, a.k.a. Obamacare. How does that dovetail? Some people are saying this is still going to be repealed. I mean, it's a massive financial burden. Where do you see this going if we try to balance the budget? It seems that it would be just completely unable to do so.
Well, I think that as the president's health care plan gets into place next year, January 1, 2014, 2014, 2015, 2016, the last 3 years he's president, I don't think he's likely to be willing to repeal what he considers his greatest accomplishment. But I think by the implementation of this 2 and 3 years into this will be a huge issue in 2016. People are going to be looking at higher insurance bills, and frankly, I'm absolutely sure that there will be more people without insurance 2 years from now than there were 2 years ago. So the fundamental goal of the plan will have failed. The cost will be much greater than anybody has estimated up until now, and I think the American people, hopefully, there'll still be enough of the good healthcare system we've had left that we can make the kind of changes we should have made 3 years ago: medical liability reform, buying across state lines, more access to a competitive insurance marketplace. All of those things were possible. The choice was not, do you not want to do anything to change the healthcare system or have the president's healthcare plan? We should have done other things, and I'm hopeful that there'll still be time to do those other things after the president's health care plan has been in place and Americans see what really happened.
Well, if that's his landmark domestic policy achievement of his time in office and it leaves more people uninsured than insured, is it just rampant ego on his part that can't see that or doesn't want to admit it and would thus fight against its repeal?
I don't know. The one theory is that they understand that this plan will not produce good results, but it will lead to even more greater control of health care and maybe eventually a Canadian-type single-payer health care system where some government official decides what kind of health care you need rather than you and your doctor deciding, and I hope that's not what happens. But this clearly is not going to work. Just yesterday, they announced that the small business exchange, one of the principal reasons that many of the Democrats who voted for this said they were for it, has to be postponed another year. Some state governments have announced that none of their part-time employees will be able to work more than 29 hours in the future as a cost-saving thing because they've been providing insurance for these people up till now. But if you don't work 30 hours, you don't get health insurance. I think we're going to see lots of people have 2 and 3 jobs that are less than 30 hours, and none of those jobs have benefits. And so I think this is, and guaranteed issue. If you can, this is an idea that would never work. That you have to guarantee somebody insurance when they need it, but the penalty when you don't need it is not so big that you can't choose just to pay the penalty. Why would anybody have insurance if you can get it the day you need it, and the penalty is a lot less than having insurance for all the time you don't need it?
Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri with us this morning in the morning meeting. Senator, there's all these other hot-button issues happening. You look at gun control, immigration reform is ramping up. Are these the main things everybody is focused on in Washington, or are these just the main things the press is focused on? Are there other things happening in the Senate, or is this it?
Well, I think there's a lot of focus in the Senate on energy policy, and it's really important to the future of the country. More American energy is the best way to more American jobs, and not just the energy it takes to create, not just the jobs it takes to create that more American energy, but all the things that happen when you have more American energy. You begin to make things again. If your natural gas utility bill is guaranteed and is unbelievably competitive compared to the rest of the country, we have a product available to us now in natural gas that cost about $3.50, where in Europe or Asia it costs $14 or $16. So literally 75% more than we pay for a key component of what it takes to make things, if we'll take full advantage of that ability to have more American energy. I had a debate on the budget in the budget about no carbon tax, no additional tax for use of fossil fuels. And one of the points I made in that debate was that the people that are most harmed by that are the people at the most vulnerable in our society, people who are on a fixed income and retired, people who are struggling to get by. They're the last people to get the energy-efficient refrigerator or the new, more fuel-efficient car. It's a travesty to not use the energy we have available to us in the best possible way. But I do think the president feels that there's some big advantage to diverting attention to gun control and to immigration policy, which are things that we need to talk about. We need to be sure we protect the Second Amendment. At the same time, they're not the things that are going to drive economic opportunity in the country.
I just wanted to touch on the idea of energy a little bit more, Senator. It's been well documented, the boom that's happened across the Dakotas because of their willingness to go after fossil fuels. Texas has been pumping out more oil than ever. Is there a role that Missouri can play in the energy boom to either be a producer or to leverage that for its economic success?
Well, I don't think we want to forget the coal resources we have or our coal-fired plants, but we also want to realize that we're in the center of the country where we're close to a lot of this energy. We apparently don't have any shale oil or shale gas in significant amounts anywhere in our state. But we're on the transportation path. No matter how you transport that energy, we're close to that energy, and natural gas is something that's relatively easy to move around within a continent or within a region. Much harder to move around once you start talking about moving it overseas. We can take advantage of that. The river right there where you guys are is a critically important economic element for our state that I think we haven't fully appreciated or done the things we needed to do with for half a century now. And we need to get back to realizing the great economic potential of the Missouri River, of the Mississippi River, of what we can do moving transportation, moving energy on the river to the newly expanded Panama Canal. There's lots of potential for Missouri and being close to the energy sources of the country in Oklahoma, in the Dakotas, and using our own fossil fuels in a good way are all part of that.
All right, Senator Roy Blunt, he's going to be in Northeast Missouri on Saturday and starting things in Hannibal at the Lincoln Days Breakfast there. That is this Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning.